One of the most boring documents of all time is the thick volume of Hitler's table talk. He too had people watching movies, eating pastries, and drinking coffee with Schlag while he bored them, while he discoursed, theorized, expounded. Everyone was perishing of staleness and fear, afraid to go to the toilet. This combination of power and boredom has never been properly examined. Boredom is an instrument of social control. Power is the power to impose boredom, to command stasis, to combine this stasis with anguish. The real tedium, deep tedium, is seasoned with terror and with death. There were even profounder questions. For instance, the history of the universe would be very boring if one tried to think of it in the ordinary way of human experience. All that time without events, gases over and over again, and heat and particles of matter, the sun, tides, and winds. Again, this creeping development, bits added to bits, chemical accidents, whole ages in which almost nothing happens, lifeless seas, only a few crystals, a few protein compounds developing. The tardiness of evolution is so irritating to contemplate. The clumsy mistakes you see in museum fossils. How could such bones crawl, walk, run? It is agony to think of the groping of the species, all this fumbling, swamp creeping, munching, preying, and reproduction, the boring slowness with which tissues, organs, and members developed. And then the boredom also of the emergence of the higher types, and finally of mankind, the dull life of Paleolithic forests, the long, long incubation of intelligence, the slowness of invention, the idiocy of peasant ages. These are interesting only in review, in thought. No one could bear to experience this. The present demand is for a quick forward movement, for a summary, for life at the speed of intensest thought. As we approach, through technology, the phase of instantaneous realization, of the realization of eternal human desires or fantasies, of abolishing time and space, the problem of boredom can only become more intense. The human being, more and more oppressed by the peculiar terms of his existence, one time around for each, no more than a single life per customer, has to think of the boredom of death. Oh, those eternities of non-existence. For people who crave continual interest and diversity, oh, how boring death will be. To lie in the grave in one place, how frightful. Socrates tried to soothe us, true enough. He said there were only two possibilities. Either the soul is immortal, or after death things would be again as blank as they were before we were born. This is not absolutely comforting either. Anyway, it was natural that theology and philosophy should take the deepest interest in this. They owe it to us not to be boring themselves. On this obligation they don't always make good. However, Kierkegaard was not a bore. I planned to examine his contribution in my master essay. In his view, the primacy of the ethical over the aesthetic mode was necessary to restore the balance. But enough of that. In myself, I could observe the following sources of tedium. 1. The lack of a personal connection with the external world. Earlier I noted that when I was riding through France in a train last spring, I looked out of the window and thought that the veil of Mayo was wearing thin. And why was this? I wasn't seeing what was there, but only what everyone sees under a common directive. By this is implied that our world view has used up nature. The rule of this view is that I, a subject, see the phenomena, the world of objects. They, however, are not necessarily in themselves objects, as modern rationality defines objects. For in spirit, says Steiner, a man can step out of himself and let things speak to him about themselves, to speak about what has meaning not for him alone, but also for them. Thus the sun, the moon, the stars will speak to non-astronomers in spite of their ignorance of science. In fact, it's high time that this happened. Ignorance of science should not keep one imprisoned in the lowest and weariest sector of being, prohibited from entering into independent relations with the creation as a whole. The educated speak of the disenchanted, a boring world. But it is not the world, it is my own head that is disenchanted. The world cannot be disenchanted. 2. For me, the self-conscious ego is the seat of boredom. This increasing, swelling, domineering, painful self-consciousness is the only rival of the political and social powers that run my life. Business, technological bureaucratic powers, the state. You have a great organized movement of life, and you have the single self, independently conscious, proud of its detachment and its absolute immunity, its stability, and its power to remain unaffected by anything whatsoever, by the sufferings of others, or by society, or by politics, or by external chaos. In a way, it doesn't give a damn. It is asked to give a damn, and we often urge it to give a damn, but the curse of non-caring lies upon this painfully free consciousness. It is free from attachment to beliefs and to other souls, cosmologies, ethical systems. It can run through them by the dozens. For to be fully conscious of oneself as an individual is also to be separated from all else. This is Hamlet's kingdom of infinite space in a nutshell, of words, 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 of Denmark's a prison.